Hello and welcome to this Chess Heroes video, and today I'll review a game by Paul Morphy. So Paul Morphy was one of the most famous chess players of his time, of all time, one of the best in history. He was born in, 1837 and died at 47 years old in 1884. And he was born in Louisiana, in New Orleans, in the United States. And it's pretty sad that he died early, and he kind of quit chess early. He may have had some mental health issues later in his life, but he was a child chess prodigy when he was younger, and played amazing chess as a child. But then at a young age, he pursued his studies at college and took a break from chess, and he obtained multiple degrees. He even reportedly memorized the entire Louisiana law code when he got a law degree, and he wanted to become a lawyer. I believe his father may have been a judge. So anyway, let's get to his chess. He has one of the most famous, if not the most famous game in history, the Opera House game, which I won't show here because that's showed in so many videos. You can look up the Paul Morphy Opera House game if you really want to see an amazing game where he played against two opponents in an opera house. I just picked another game here against a chess master, Johann Lowenthal. And Paul Morphy, he had the white pieces here. He played 92.5% accuracy versus 84.7 by his opponent. He also had maybe two inaccuracies in the game, one mistake. His opponent had 5 and 1 blunder. So we'll take a look at this and see what Morphy did here. So another thing about Morphy, let's get to the game while we're talking here. The game began with e4, e6, so a French defense. Now, Morphy, after he completed his college studies, he had to wait to a certain age, maybe 21 or something, before he could practice law in the state. And so he took time off and played some chess, and he played in the first U.S. Chess Congress, all the best players from the United States, and he won that tournament. And then he went on to Europe and just basically defeated all the greatest players across Europe. There was Howard Staunton, who the Staunton chess pieces are named after, and Staunton was maybe the greatest player in the world in the 1840s. And there was Morphy tried to have a match arranged against Staunton, and it never happened. Some people think Staunton tried to avoid Morphy because Morphy was so good and Staunton was past his prime. So Morphy played Adolf Anderssen, considered the best player in the world in the mid-1850s. And of course, Morphy won. But let's get back to this game. So we have a French defense, e4, e6 here, and d5. So normal moves in the French defense. This is the exchange variation. Morphy was known for liking, tactical positions, just developing the pieces as fast as he could and getting an attack in. So opening the position up here would be more to Morphy's liking than if it was a closed position in the center. So we have the exchange variation of the French defense, and Morphy immediately develops a piece, as does his opponent. The bishop is developed here because, the bishop, of course, can't go to c4 or it'll be captured. And if it moved here, it would be attacked by the pawn and chased away. So Morphy lines up the bishop on the king's side in case black decides to castle there. The knight is developed and his opponent copies him here. So now we have castling by both sides. So a symmetrical position. Morphy develops a knight. And his opponent decides to defend the pawn here in the center, an inaccuracy. Apparently, bishop to g4 would have been better to pin the knight to the queen. So Morphy does that to his opponent, pinning the knight to the queen. But apparently, it's an inaccuracy here. It would have been better to play h3, I guess, which would prevent the pin here. So we have h3 and Morphy retreats and a pin over here. So the same thing. Will his opponent retreat? No. Lowenthal gives up the bishop pair for this knight here. So the queen recaptures. And if we look at the position, Morphy, who loved to develop his pieces as fast as he could. He has 4 pieces developed, and his opponent only has 2. And we have the bishop and queen piling up on this knight, which is pinned to the queen. So the best move in the position, the knight just moves here, helping fortify the knight on f6, which is under fire. And the game continues with bishop to f5. So this is a little bit out of character for Morphy, and it is a mistake. Morphy, known for developing as quickly as possible, neglects the development of his rooks, and instead tries to attack this knight, which is helping fortify this knight. So what would have been better? It looks like knight... Let's see, knight to d1. That's an interesting choice there. I guess from d1, the knight could reposition maybe up to e3, and it would allow the c-pawn to push forward and try and attack in the center. But we had bishop to f5. Queen bishop battery is created, and this pin is gotten rid of here. So Morphy continues by centralizing the rook that was over here doing nothing, and it blocks this rook in, but what is the rook doing here? Maybe fortifying a future f-pawn push. Anyway, let's see what happens. The rook centralizes here as well, and there's a confrontation on the open e-file. So what does Morphy do? He pushes forward. Now, if the rook captures, he could recapture and pull a flank pawn into the center. That's one possibility. So now the best move is played, bishop to f4. And at this point, black has a slight edge. So the rook is under attack. What will Morphy do? He just retreats, preferring to keep his rook here. What will his opponent do? We have a capture. The knight recaptures, which is best because now the the bishop is under attack by 2 pieces and only protected by 1. So bishop retreat. And now, what is this move? Morphy gives up his bishop pair, and it looks like he intends to break apart the kingside pieces here after, or the kingside pawns after capture, and his opponent plays the best move, retreating the knight instead of capturing with the queen and avoiding this capture that would lead to busted pawns on the king side. So the game continues with the knight moving up towards the king side. And now the rook grabs the open file here. So the best move for black, and black does still have a slight edge at this point. So knight jumps forward, attacking the bishop here, and getting closer to the king side for possible king side attack coming in the future. So we have a knight retreat, bishop drops back, challenging the queen bishop battery. So capture, pawn captures, unleashing the rook on the f file. So we have a battery aimed up here, and the only thing protecting this is the king and the queen, which is adequate for the moment. But the game continues with the rook jumping forward, attacking this pawn, which is protected at the moment by the knight. But if that knight is driven away, then this rook could capture the pawn. So now we have Morphy fortifying the pawn, the best move. The best move is played in response. The knight moves to the edge, which is usually not a good idea, but here the knight to g5 could target the queen. So h4 is played to prevent this knight from jumping in here and attacking the queen. h5 to keep space even here on the king side, but with this move, that pawn could be snatched up. And it looks like that is not the best way to go. Perhaps because the knight could be chased. Okay, there's a fork. If this pawn is captured, then g6 could try and fork these pieces. It looks like that would be a nasty fork. So Morphy plays a great move. The best move here, c4, attacking the pawn, which is protecting the rook. So, of course, we cannot capture that pawn or the rook would fall. And a blunder by Lowenthal here. So here we have knight to f6, a blunder. Why is this a blunder? Well, it looks like the pawn can be captured and then the knight will fall. And that's what Morphy does. So Morphy being the greatest player on the planet at this time, back when was this played? Probably 1858. Now, instead of capturing, the knight jumps forward into Morphy's position, but now we have a retreat by this knight capturing a pawn. And there's a threat of the knight jumping forward and attacking. So, a pawn is captured by the rook. The other pawn is under attack. We have a check, capture, and capture. So, if we look at the position, it looks like at this moment, we have 6 pawns to 5 in favor of Morphy, but the queen is hovering around this open king position that black has. So what will Morphy do now? Well, first his opponent captures a pawn, so now the pawns are even. But we have a rook lift here, getting ready to put more pressure on his opponent's king side. So the game continues with rook to g4, trying to defend, and that is the best move in the position. But according to the computer analysis, Morphy has already won here. If he plays rook to e5, and he does. So rook to e5 blocks the communication of the queen and the rook working together, trying to attack this pawn. So we have a queen retreat and rook to e7. An inaccuracy here. Morphy is still ahead, but that was not the best move. Rook to h5 would have been better, threatening a checkmate. So if we take a look at that, rook to h5. The only thing that could be played is a block here. Otherwise, the queen would deliver a mate on h8 there. So, what now? Oh, not good. Queen to h6 would be possible, and with a threat of a mate on h8 again. And either the king would have to move, but then the queen could be captured, or this pawn could move forward, but that's not good either, because once again, check, and then the queen would be captured. All right, so in the game, Morphy plays a little inaccuracy, but there's a threat here of capturing, chasing the king into the corner, and delivering a mate. So the queen moves here to f8, helping protect and defend, but we have a queen retreat protecting this pawn, and the queen makes an inaccurate move, trying to pile up on this pawn, but rook to e8, rook to e4 would have been better. So if we go back, rook to e4 would attack the queen, but there is g5 check. The king would have to move, or the queen could try and block. But if the king moved, the queen could start chasing. Anyway, I'll give you an example. So check. The best move apparently is king into the corner, or h7. Now the rook can just pick off a pawn over here, and Morphy would be looking pretty good there. So let's get back to what actually happened in the game. How did this game conclude? Well, Morphy delivers a check, and it is not looking good at all for his opponent. King to h7 is played, and then queen to h5. And here, Johann Lowenthal resigns because, what can be played here? The only thing possible is to block with queen to h6. But then you either have queen captures here. You could even have rook checking, and once the king moves, the queen would be captured. So the king would have to give up, capture the rook and give up a queen. So you'd have an exchange of rook for queen. The computer actually recommends snatching up this pawn, then blocking queen to f8. That's interesting. Queen to h5. Okay. But then we have queen to h8 check. King is forced to move. Rook to e6. So this is just looking awful. The king is forced to move, and then the queen will fall. So anyway, there you have it. How did this game end? Let's see here. It looks like it was just awful for Lowenthal there in the end game. But an interesting game showing Morphy playing another chess master. And this was in what year here? Let me see if I can pull that up. Where is the information on this? They changed some of this up, so it's harder to see where everything is on this. I don't know why this is not showing up. All right, anyway, there you have it. A game by Morphy, a chess hero, a legend, one of the greatest players of all time. It's a shame that he died young and he quit chess. So he played from about, he played when he was young, then he took a break for school. He got back into chess in the mid to late 50s. So he played for a few years, maybe from 1857 to 1859. And, he played a few games, maybe through 1860 and a couple years after that. But he basically just quit chess and kind of had some mental health problems and died of a stroke young at 47 years old. So a shame that we weren't able to experience more games by Paul Morphy. But especially if you're a beginner, well, players of all levels could benefit from studying the games of Paul Morphy. All right. Well, feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. I apologize if it's getting too dark in here. I should have turned on a light. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.